Alright, got a nice quick gear crafting video today. Gonna be going over how I made my gear for my Exsanguinate Omniscience Scion. So this one being an Omniscience build, a lot of the gear has a heavy focus on getting a lot of flat attributes and a little bit of percent attribute stuff. And spoilers, it's a lot of fractured bases that get essences spammed on them, because that's kind of how you craft things this league, for especially a build like this, because there's 3 different essences you can spam for stats, which is what you do a lot. So I'm just gonna go piece by piece. Helmet. Fractured spell suppression is actually pretty important here for this one, because this was like the one probably more expensive rare item craft. You can see the 3 suffixes. I have the spell suppression, which I fractured myself. You could just buy a base, but on hardcore there wasn't a ton for sale. It has essence mana reservation from Essence of Loathing, and then just a strength roll. So basically what I initially did was I wanted to get the mana reservation fractured potentially, and I think I spammed mana reservation essences until I also hit suppression. So I had both those mods. It didn't have an attribute roll, but I got those 2. And then I used a harvest fracture and just kind of hoped that I would hit one of the 2, and I happened to hit the suppression. And then just spam mana reservation essences again until I hit attribute, either strength or dex, since this could hit either one. Actually, I think this can hit it. This could hit int as well. Either way, just until it hits an attribute. And then on the prefix side, I just locked suffixes, and I believe I just did an ashling, or not an ashling. I think I used a veiled chaos orb. Either one. Fishing for +2 AoE because I wanted the +2 levels for purity of fire, specifically to get the extra fire res, and extra levels on grace and determination rigor 2, and it's crafted life. And I could finish this further with like Eldritch currency and like a lot more investment to get like a higher life roll, since because it has Eldritch implicits, you can manipulate specifically the prefixes still and safely keep the suffixes, but I didn't bother. Shield +3 max fire res is basically the way to go on this one that I wanted, because I'm scaling fire res, so it was basically a matter of getting that. And then spamming dexterity essences. You can see the suffix mod is of the essence on dexterity, because I was using deafening essences. Spamming those until I hit good spell suppression. I got T2 because this wasn't high enough to hit tier 1. And then lock suffixes and reforge for life, and just basically hope that you don't fill up all the prefixes, or if you do, that you get a good life roll. I got T3 life, so it's not like insane, but suffixes are more important. Ring, same thing. Just bought a ring with fractured cast speed, and then I spammed, you can see, of the essence strength essences. And I don't remember if I hit chaos res here. I think what I was planning on doing was basically hitting the strength roll, and then no, I think I did. I think on this one I did just hit the chaos res. The other way to do it would be to use chaos reforges and harvest until you just hit chaos res and one of the stat rolls, which specifically to get chaos res could have maybe been a little bit better, but I just had so many essences that I think I just spammed them away. Other ring is actually completely different, and one of the only items that doesn't have any stats. I got fractured lightning res because I was just going for, I need a lot of cold and lightning res. This was literally a 2-stone cold and lightning res ring with fractured lightning res, or cold res would have been fine, or chaos res would have been fine. And then I just used chaos reforges on harvest to guarantee chaos res until I got decent chaos res and good cold res. And then once that's done, lock suffixes, use ashling to add a veiled prefix. You benchcraft mana to any mana. I mean, you can just benchcraft the one that I'm using right now. And then the unveil almost always gives you this unveiled life roll that goes up to 60. And the little bit of flat mana regen is actually pretty helpful too. Gloves could easily be also done with a fractured base. Probably ideally with fractured suppression. I happened to get really lucky. I was just like spamming some essences. I think I was planning on fracturing, trying to fish for a fractured suppression mod. So I was like spamming here. I had strength essences, and I was hoping for strength plus suppression, and then I would gamble the harvest fracture. But I just happened to hit suppression and T1 dexterity. My prefixes aren't super crazy. It's tier 3 life, which is kind of low. The tier 1 armor evasions is actually pretty good, and then bench crafted conversion to cap out my fire conversion. Boots, again, suffix focused again. I was making a couple pairs of boots with ailment avoidance and spell suppression. The ailment avoidance comes from an essence. I think that's also Essence of Loathing, actually. Was trying to get the fractured ailment avoidance. Ended up with a fractured strength pair like this. And then just decided to go with it, and from here just spammed ailment avoid essences until I hit a suppression roll. Again, this one got T2, which was fine. And then on the prefix side, again, either Ashling or Veiled Chaos Orb to get a good move speed roll. I think I did this a couple extra times to specifically get the onslaught on kill one. They're all good, but I really like having the onslaught on kill. And then the last two, the belt here is a belt where I just spam essences on a random rare Stygian belt because I need a new belt. Because I crafted my Headhunter into a rare item in an incursion temple. So this item's not worth talking about. Body armor is like the one kind of involved craft, but it's not really. It's just basically an Awakener's Orb craft with elevated Redeemer aura effect and elevated Warlord percent strength. The Warlord mod's the reason I go for this, because the percent strength suffix on Warlord when you elevate it gives also +1 socketed strength gems, which for this build means you get +1 to your Exsanguinate, and then you also get +1 to your Empower, which is another +1 to your Exsanguinate. So it's just really, really good mod. But it's basically a matter of you get those two elevated mods, and then you awaken or orb, and you hope your third suffix is something useful. This one has all res, which isn't that useful. It does overcap me a little bit more. I'm not too worried about being overcapped on Cold and Lightning, but technically that is a little bit helpful. And then I had a life roll, that 96 life roll, and I locked suffixes and did an Ashling, and was basically really hoping to hit ailment avoidance on Veil. Unfortunately, I didn't, but I did keep the life roll and hit percent life, which is pretty good. And so I just bench crafted ailment avoidance, which I ended up having to switch my bandits to helping Creighton because of this, because I'm missing a little bit of ailment avoidance. But Creighton's actually not that bad if you can make use of the fact that he gives you 10% ailment avoidance. So that was cool. But specifically for these mods, I'm going to go here real quick to Craft of Exile. One of the mods obviously had to be done on the full dragon scale that I'm using, but the other one, when I'm getting my just like sacrificial base, generally you want to get a dexterity base. So let's say that I did the Redeemer mod on the sacrificial base. Kind of a good way to look at this is I want T1 aura effect, and then I think it was the prefixes was the easier one to fish for here. You use fossils to basically get two different mods together that you can then use the Maven orbs, or they're now called Orbs of Dominance, to sacrifice one to boost the other. Which, oh, this isn't set up properly. Set these all up on the same row so that it's just only picking one of them. And I could do the compute, but this is basically the way to do it. For the getting the Redeemer mod, this is basically the best way to get tier 1 aura effect with just some other Redeemer mod, because you need a second one to then elevate the aura effect. On the Redeemer side, it's Dense, Pristine, Bound. And then for the Warlord mod, I'm not going to go through all the stuff specifically here, but it's Dense and Pristine again, but this time with fundamental fossils to boost the strength roll. And I'll show that too. So the Redeemer one was 1 in 12, so it's not too many fossils. This one is 1 in 11. And these can actually go down a little bit depending on what eye level you get. Like, I think if I go to like level 80 on this, it should go down to 1 in 10 slightly. But those are the fossil combos: Dense, Pristine, Fundamental for Warlord, and then Dense, Pristine, Bound for the Redeemer one. And then after that, it's just the Awakener Orb and praying for good RNG. And then finally, I've got the weapon. This one's Not exactly what I planned because it has a really high cast speed roll. That was just a bit of good RNG, but the +2 is pretty consistent. Um, and then usually what I would go for on one of these +2 weapons is an unveiled mod for the third mod, either like a prefix or a suffix. Like if I had unveiled cast speed suffix, or if I had unveiled spell damage prefix, whatever it would be good. And then I would just be multi-mod crafting whatever's missing. And that's the one I can show too. Basically, it starts with, I'm using a scepter. Getting a fractured base on this would have actually been pretty good too, but because I'm using a weird heist base, it's kind of not realistic to just find a fractured base. It wouldn't be worth fracturing it myself, but if I could have bought one, would have been fine. So we want basically just to get +1 all spells on the weapon. And the way to do that is to use Shuddering Fossil, Metallic Fossil, and Corroded Fossil. However, I messed something up because it shouldn't be 1 in 52. Oh, that's right. So if your item is eye level 82 or less, you can use Corroded Shuddering Metallic. If your item is, and I can do the compute for these to show this one because it is a bit more important. There's like a variance based on your item. You can see Corroded Metallic Shuddering. If your item is eye level 83 or higher, which mine was, what happens is you suddenly can roll this mod, this Flat Chaos, and that mod's a problem. So if you wanted to use a 3-socket, I think there's a decent one still with an Aetheric Fossil. Yeah, Aetheric Corroded Shuddering, so you would ditch Metallic and you'd go Aetheric. And that's a 1 in 19. However, if you go up to a 4-socket resonator, we're gonna let it run. It should do Shuddering, Corroded, Metallic, Jagged, or Metallic, Aetheric, and it'll be a very high chance of success at that point. So if you have a high eye level, you kind of have to fork out a bit more, unfortunately. Yep, the Aetheric Metallic gives you a solid 1 in 5 shot. So the chance of hitting you hit it pretty easily. And just the goal here of all the fossils is just to get +1 all spells. You don't really care what else is on the item. The suffixes don't matter. You're basically always going to have spell damage. It's usually going to be bad. If you hit good spell damage, that's awesome. But most of the time it's going to be bad. And then so what you're going to do from there is, so let's say you have your weapon and it has +1 all spells and it has like 30 spell damage and some garbage suffixes. If it has 3 garbage suffixes, your play then is to either annul, or what I like to do is suffix to prefix if there's an open prefix. Because chances are when you add that extra prefix from the bestiary craft, it's not going to be a spell mod. And then after that, you still have a bad % spell damage and you have +1, which is a problem. And you kind of just need to annul until either the spell damage goes away or the +1 all spells goes away. It's a 50-50. If the +1 all spells goes away, that sucks. Start over, do the fossils again. If the spell damage goes away and whatever other prefix you have isn't a caster mod, you can then start doing benchcraft cannot roll caster mods and then annul. It's expensive now, but depending on how patient you are, it could be worth it. And the fossil prices on softcore, this stuff might change, but on hardcore, just buying enough of the fossils is annoying. That's worth spending. It costs a divine orb, and there's a chance that you just annul off the cannot roll caster. But if you have cannot roll caster and you annul, it will never get rid of your +1 all spells. And so I got mine to a point where I had just the spell damage, the +1 all spells, and the cast speed. and that was how it went. But let's just assume that doesn't happen. You get your item down to just +1 all spells and nothing else whatsoever. So what you would do then is you have basically a 1 mod rare item. You would craft multi-mod, you would craft cannot roll attack mods, and you would craft prefixes cannot be changed. You're putting the cannot roll attack to help force +1 fizz, and you're crafting the prefix can't be changed so that it won't get rid of your +1 all spells. When you do that, and you use a harvest physical augment, it's gonna force +1 fizz because the only thing that it can roll when it can't roll attack is +1 fizz, and then it's gonna remove one of your bench crafted suffixes. So now you have a +2 with nothing else. You will then lock the. I think I can show this actually. Let's see. Emulator. Create new item. We'll start from the point of having +1 all spells. And then suffix. Craft. Multi-mod. Prefix lock. Cannot roll attack. Harvest craft. Augment. Fizz. Use it. That's +2. So this, in this case, we can actually use this. As long as it keeps the prefix can't be changed, it's actually pretty good here. Because what you would do otherwise is you would just craft prefix can't be changed again. And then we would go to Ashling. We would use an Ashling Veil. It's going to give us some veiled mod. We got a veiled suffix. And this would be your item. And then you would want to bench craft to block one of the unveiled mods, which on a scepter specifically, use PoEDB because it's easier for me to go through. I don't remember the exact thing to block on a scepter. Basically, and this applies to any time you're unveiling. Like if you're unveiling a suffix, what you want to do is you want to look at the options for veiled suffixes, which are all right here. I want double damage is good, cast speed is good, double damage while focused, wherever that one is good. Anything else is bad. So we're looking at these red numbers here, the weights of all these mod groups. Whichever one has the biggest amount, which is right here. This mod group has the highest total weight. We're going to bench craft one of these mods to block it so that those can't get unveiled. So we want to bench craft damage per frenzy charge, sure. And then unveil. And unfortunately, this one actually didn't hit anything good. So let's undo. You would end up. So if that happens, actually, let me do it again. Actually, if you whiff, at this point, what you probably have to do to safely keep everything going is like prefix can't be changed. You could try to annul 50% chance to get rid of this and not get rid of your prefix lock. You can also just scour. And then again, prefix can't be changed. Again, go to Syndicate, Ashling. This time it's a veiled prefix. Now in this case on this weapon, we can't do a block because our other prefixes are full. There's a low chance of success here, but if you hit something, it's really good. So I actually did hit it. So let's just go with that. Got spell damage. And then from that point, just multi-mod the last 3. If it's as a suffix, again, you would do the... Let's get a suffix one more time. Do the damage per charge, unveil. Chance to deal double damage. That's pretty good. And then again, you would multi-mod. So in this case, I would multi-mod for cast speed and spell damage. And yeah, that's the weapon. The weapon's the one thing that's complicated. Everything else is easy. But those are the items. Oh, actually, there's a cluster jewel too. A cluster jewel, which is I don't actually remember. So here, I'll find that one real quick too. Cluster Jewel, large cluster, physical damage. Item level I think needs to be, yes. It's at least 68, but you want less than, I think, 75? No, just less than 84? No, there should be some other mods in here. Oh, there's other keystones. Either way, mine's level 72. Fossil craft. We want battle hardened, which is really good. And then you kind of need Iron Breaker as the second one here because Master of the Fundamentals is just actively not good for us. And then Furious Assault is good. And Force Multiplier is also fine, to be honest. So either one of those and both of these. Don't want to go past 3 socket resonators. And this was Jagged something something? Jagged, Corroded, Deft. So, get Deft, get Jagged, get Corroded. 1 and 13. Easy peasy. Not too hard to make. And that's how you craft items for this character. Easy. Cool. Thanks for watching.